It was dangerous. You did have to be present and focused on what was around you. I found that extremely life-giving. You were thrust into the moment and you really had to exercise this sort of will to live.
You write in the chapter, and it might even be in the epilogue, that for most of us, our will to live is no longer really a vital part of our existence. In fact, this was in the epilogue, if I recall, because I believe you wrote about it in the context of learning survival skills prior to going into Baghdad. I was really struck by that because it really resonates, right? Like, I can certainly think of times when I've exerted my will, but I don't really think about it in terms of will to live. And yet, for all of human history, that was a thing. Again, you think about that snake jumping out of the jungle, or you think about, the complete lack of food, or the dysentery you just got, that, there's so many areas where the will to live must have been one of the strongest selective features of our existence. And yet today it's never put to the test. What is the implication of that?
Well, I think it's easy to just sort of exist and not live. So I'll tell you my experience of this is before I go to Baghdad, I realized, okay, I should probably learn some skills should things go south, which, there's a much higher likelihood of something going south in Baghdad than there is if I were to your point, report on, drugs in Ohio or something. So I go meet my friend whose name is Mike Moreno. He's a VC guy, but before that, he spent a bunch of years in the CIA in Baghdad running operations. So he takes me out to the desert in outside of San Diego. And we go through all these different skills I'm going to need to know in order to survive should something go wrong while I'm there. And at the end of the day, so we spend 8 hours. Like, here's all these ways you could die, Michael. At the end of the day, we're sitting on the tailgate of his SUV, and he looks over at me and he goes, man, I'm really jealous that you're going there. And when he says that to me, I look at him, I'm like, we just talked about how this is not a good idea in many ways, and yet you're wanting to go back. What's up with that? And he says, what I miss most about my time there is because it was austere, it was dangerous. You did have to be present and focused on what was around you. I found that extremely life-giving, right? You were thrust into the moment and you really had to exercise this sort of will to live. And I said, okay. And once I got back from Baghdad, I totally understood that. I will remember every moment of being there because you can't just zone out. On the way here in the Uber, I pop in my headphones. I just sort of, whatever. I can't do that there. I'm looking around at everything. I'm aware every interaction becomes important. I'm having to make judgment calls in the moment. There is some underlying level of danger, and that in turn, that uncertainty forces me into presence and awareness and makes my time consequential. And I think that is life-giving. And I think we do not have that in a way, which is a good problem to have. Don't get me wrong here. That is a good problem to have. But I think when you think about the context, to your point of how humans evolved, we live like that all the time because we didn't know where our next meal might come from very often. We didn't know what the weather would bring. We didn't know what was happening next. And we were having to really work and struggle to survive. And there is probably something rewarding to that, and to be in the moment and to have to work to get the things that you get really on a deep level and be just kind of in it, like you are in it, And so I think that the takeaway for the average person is not to go to Baghdad. Let me say that. It is, how can you do things in your life that maybe reflect that a little bit? I mean, I think maybe, we both like hunting. I definitely get that from hunting. You have to be present. You have to be focused. You have to be aware. It's not exactly comfortable. I think people can get that from all sorts of things that they can do outdoors. Could be from volunteering. Like, I'm going to go to this place. I'm going to help others. I'm going to go down to this place. I'm going to serve others, right? Something that sort of puts you in the moment and makes you aware, I think is important for happiness.